Super Smash Bros. Ultimate has a really impressive roster. With 89 characters, it's shocking that the majority are fun and unique to play as. But recently, I've been thinking about a potential new Smash game and what it would be like. There's no guarantee to what type of game it would be, or even that it will ever exist. The only guarantee is that if it is brand new, the roster would definitely be smaller. So I've decided to challenge myself to cut down the roster of Ultimate to only 40 characters, the same amount as Super Smash Bros. Brawl. The characters would be the same as they are now, with no moveset or historical changes, and will be entirely my own opinion. The main criteria of whether a character will stay or not will be how fun the character is to play, how fun they are to watch, their online perception, their history in Smash, their history in video games, and my own personal liking of the characters. Do keep in mind that this was a very hard list to make, and I had to get rid of a lot of characters I really liked. It's also a very biased video, since there are tons of characters I really like that I let stay in over other more popular characters. It's very inconsistent, but just know I tried to do this with the most respect for the characters I could. Also, keep in mind that I haven't played every series, or haven't played much of a ton of the series, like these ones. I do think I'm pretty fair, but my lack of bias for these series might be evident. Without further ado, here's my Smash Ultimate roster cut down to only 40 characters. Alright, before we get started, let's start with some obvious choices. All of the original 12 are staying, no questions asked. They were here at the beginning, and they will see the end. Next, I think that rather than any of the characters with the exact movesets as their parent fighters stay, they'd make for better skins on fighters. That takes out Dark Samus, Daisy, and one of the Belmonts. We'll get to that later. I also think that though seeing fighting game characters from other games is cool, they don't really work well with Smash's more simplistic controls and environment. They were cool additions, but can either be way too complicated or too loyal to source material for their own good. This would get rid of Ryu, Ken, Terry, and Kazuya. I left Min Min and Little Mac out, and you'll see why in a bit. I think that we should touch on the links. I would love it if all of them could have unique movesets, but unfortunately that's not the world we live in. Other than some minor mechanical and moveset differences, they're basically the same and are unnecessary in a fighting game with 40 characters. Both Young Link and Toon Link are going, even if I prefer their characters over standard links. Next up is the Fox Trio, and the two contenders for being chopped are Falco and Wolf. I like Falco in his games, don't get me wrong, but all I can think of when I try to think of him is his appearance in Melee. In Melee, he kind of acts as a character for people who are getting tired of Fox to go to. He jumps really high and has a nasty spike, while also not being able to do some of the tech that Fox can do. He's also pretty good in Ultimate as well, and can do some pretty nasty combos. Wolf also sticks out to me as one of my favorite characters to play in Ultimate. His moveset is so incredibly satisfying and powerful, and every hit feels like slamming your enemies with a hammer made out of knives. I kinda suck with him, but I love his moveset, his costumes, his taunts. I'm picking Falco. He's more iconic, and let's be honest, a tad bit more sexy. Let's get back to the Belmonts before I forget. Personally, I've never played a Castlevania game. I've heard great things about Symphony of the Night, but not about the games that Simon and Richter are from. I also really hate their movesets. They're very accurate from what I can find, but they're so spammy and zoning focused that I always hate fighting them. They both have awful recoveries as well, making them not safe to use off stage. I overall don't like either of them and will be cutting them both. Sorry, Castlevania fans. Going from one franchise with 2 characters to another with 2 characters, Xenoblade Chronicles, they're both staying. If Shulk and Pyra aren't in the next game, I'll be so upset and I don't know what I'll do with my life. Next, we might as well go over some Echo Fighters because quite frankly, they're unnecessary. First, we have Dr. Mario, and even though he's super fun to play as in-game, I'm afraid he'll be only staying as a costume. His moveset isn't unique enough to justify him staying, and he barely functions anyways. Next, we have Pichu, who once again isn't different enough to justify a character slot. Like, don't get me wrong, he's my boy, and he's really cute and funny, I just don't think he's worth keeping in such a tight roster. Next is Chrom, and he's basically my boy Roy again. He's kind of just worse Roy, and even though his inclusion is cool, we already have so many blue-haired, sword-wielding Fire Emblem characters, I think he can go. Our next franchise to look at is the Kid Icarus franchise, with its 3 characters, Pit, Dark Pit, and Palutena. Right off the bat, just make Dark Pit a skin for Pit, that one's easy. But Palutena is a bit more tricky. First and foremost, she's not a playable character in any Kid Icarus games. That may seem like an immediate answer as to whether she can stay, but you gotta remember, Duck Hunt and Pyra aren't playable either, so let's keep going. In Smash 4, she was typically seen as a low tier, unfitting for a goddess. In Ultimate, she was so buff that she was placed in S tier, alongside 2 rodents and a monkey, right where she belongs. She's particularly infamous for her overpowered moveset, like, the whole moveset's great. In fact, maybe too great. I like playing as her, but according to most online, she's incredibly annoying to play against. Her moveset focuses heavily on using multi-hits to rack up lots of damage, which is really annoying to deal with, and her neutral and side B... Listen, I'm scrounging for reasons, but I don't think Kid Icarus needs more representation than just Pit. I love Palutena, but for this list, unfortunately, she has to go. Next up to go is the Ice Climbers. The Ice Climbers are pretty infamous for being pretty obnoxious in every game they're in. In Melee, they had wobbling, but even with that being banned, they have a bunch of ridiculous grab combos, down and neutral B combos, and ridiculously strong aerials and tilts. In Brawl, they had chain grabs. In Ultimate, they have multi-hit into smash attack combos. They overall aren't very fun to fight. They also have only one very bad game. They're very iconic, but unfortunately they need to be cut. I think now's a good time to go over my guaranteed stays. Peach and Bowser are so incredibly iconic and fun that they have to stay. While we're at it, Wario's staying too. They're also historically rich that they need to be in. Cloud and Sephiroth are both super unique and super wanted by a lot of people, and in my opinion, they have to be in. Marth represents both classic Fire Emblem and Melee really well, and Robin represents modern Fire Emblem and is really unique. They're both staying. Banjo-Kazooie was my most wanted character for a long time and is probably my most played character in Smash. People hate his moveset, but I think it's actually really fun. I might make a video in the future defending him someday, but he's staying for sure. Lucas is definitely staying. I haven't played Mother 3 yet, but I'm very excited to since Earthbound's one of my favorite games ever. Lucas is different enough from Ness moveset-wise to stay in my opinion, and he comes from such a beloved game that I feel most would be very disappointed if he wasn't in the next Smash game. I feel like the next franchise we should touch on is probably the most misrepresented franchise and one of my favorites, the Zelda franchise. I already murked Link's ancestors, so now I'm going to murk his girlfriend, but in a less murder way and more in a conjoined twins way. I'm going to be recombining Zelda and Sheik. Nobody likes either of their new down Bs anyways, and it was either that or dealing with Sheik. Ganondorf is too iconic to remove, so that leaves Zelda with 3 characters. Oh joy. Now let's move on to another one of my favorite franchises, the Metroid franchise. I'm going to get this out of the way. Ridley's staying. He has too much historical significance with both his home series and Smash, and Metroid needs as many unique characters in Smash as possible. That unfortunately leaves Zero Suit Samus to get cut, as she's not a unique character and isn't as cool or important as Ridley. I've also never really liked Zero Suit Samus. I've always preferred normal Samus in every way. It's a crime to lower Metroid's representation by any amount though, as Metroid is very similar to Zelda as far as being underrepresented. Next up is Fire Emblem. Before I nuke most of the cast, I want to be very clear that even though I've never played a Fire Emblem game, I have always wanted to and have a lot of respect for the series. I don't think there are too many characters currently, and I have a lot of respect for fans who have to deal with salty Smash fans who are mad that Wiggler isn't a playable character in Smash. With that in mind, I'm getting rid of Ike, Lucina, Roy, Corrin, and Byleth. I hate to get rid of so many characters, especially Roy and Byleth, but I don't really have a choice. There are so many franchises that are currently only represented with one character, and to be fair, I had to make a few tough choices and cut a few characters. I feel like Marth's Tipper gimmick and Robin's spellcasting are the most unique out of all the Fire Emblem characters, and they also represent their eras the best. Also, side note, on the box art of Smash Ultimate, Corrin is covered up by one of those tab things. I don't know why they're hated so much, but they are. Also, Corrin feet. Hey, editing Skull Kid. So, looking back on my video, I feel like I was too disrespectful and mean to a Pokemon in my original script and recording. So, I'm here to say, I've kind of I used to not like Pokemon a bunch, but I've kind of come around to liking it more. So I just want to say sorry that I was originally mean to Pokemon, and the characters that I'm keeping are Mewtwo and Pokemon Trainer, and the characters I cut were Greninja, Lucario, and Incineroar. And I still want to cut those characters, Not because I don't like Pokemon, but because there's little space, and there's 2 blue Pokemon. Sorry if that's disrespectful. Can you tell I'm getting over a sore throat and it's like super hot? Sorry for the inconsistent mic quality. Hope you're enjoying the video. Bye. Next up, we should nuke a bunch of characters again. These were really tough choices to make, but to keep certain characters, I had to make the tough decision. Just know that these next few character exclusions are not because of my opinions of the character, but because we're running low on space. I will try to give an explanation for why I chose that character, but some of them I just don't have an excuse for. It was either them or another character I really liked. Without further ado, here are some of my picks to be excluded. King K. Rool is one of my favorite characters from Donkey Kong Country. He has great boss fights, is very funny, and is decently fun to play as. The problem is at this point on my list, I had to either keep King K. Rool or Sephiroth, and as much as I love King K. Rool, he only really shows up at the end of the games, and Sephiroth was a lot more exciting for me personally. Diddy Kong will be staying, however, since he's central to the DKC games and is very unique, if not aggravating. Meta Knight is a very historical character in Smash. From being extremely overpowered in Brawl to mid-tier in 4 and Ultimate, he's had an interesting journey throughout Smash. Unfortunately, there just was not enough space for him to stay. I also had to get rid of King Dedede. It's really a shame since I love King Dedede, but there just wasn't enough space. Mr. Game & Watch, Pac-Man, and Mega Man are all video game icons and are great representation of the retro era. I unfortunately had to cut them, however, as I was running low on available character spots. Just know if there could be 44 characters instead of 40, they would be in. Now, you might be saying 44? Don't you mean 43? And I'd say no, 44, because the next character is Snake, my beloved. A character from another franchise I want to get into. I genuinely think Snake's gameplay is really cool, but there just wasn't enough space for him to be in. If I could add just one more character, he would be that character, as his legacy is legendary and I think he's interesting. I unfortunately had to sacrifice him, but just know it wasn't easy. Duck Hunt and Rob, while far from being my favorite characters, are great representation of the NES era. Unfortunately, these characters fall into the trap of not actually being playable in their home games. Along with that, they each only have a few very obscure games. They're cool additions, but I can't see them in my roster with so few spots. Now, let's take a break from getting rid of characters and talk about characters that are staying. Sonic is for sure staying. Not only do I love Sonic, but he's also the perfect rival for Mario. He's just incredibly iconic, and he has to stay. Olimar is the best representation of the GameCube, my favorite console. He comes from another unique series that, yet again, I want to get into. He's very unique in Smash, and though he's kind of annoying pre-nerf, he's a more fair zoner nowadays. Inkling is the perfect representation of modern Nintendo. They come from a relatively new franchise, and were the first characters to be shown coming to Smash Ultimate. In-game, they're very fast, fluent, and have a unique gimmick. They need to stay for the next Smash game, and are definitely staying in this list. Bayonetta is another character that was OP in the previous Smash game, that being Smash 4. I think Bayonetta is so unique, however, that she has to stay. Her moveset is focused around doing stylish combos, and even though it barely works, she's still interesting enough to stay. Now, we have very few characters remaining, and we're so close to only having 40 characters. Let's look at the Mario franchise now. There's a lot of characters in Mario that should stay in, but I think it's fair to get rid of Bowser Jr., Rosalina and Luma, and Piranha Plant. They have interesting gimmicks, but we already have enough Mario characters, so I think it'll be okay. Remember how I said at the beginning of the video, we'd come back to Little Mac and Min Min? That's because they aren't in traditional fighting games. I still don't think they work very well in Smash, however. Little Mac is very speedy and hits quick. The problem with him is that he has very low range and he's terrible in the air. He's basically the worst character in the game because of how awful he is at doing anything, and he doesn't need to stay. Min Min is basically the opposite of Little Mac. She gets way too much range because of her long arms and is annoying as hell to fight. I don't think she works for a game like Smash either, so I'm getting rid of both of them. Sorry guys, I like their characters at least. Wii Fit Trainer is... Wait, I didn't get rid of her yet? Oh, shoot. Sorry guys, I guess I forgot about her. I'll just, There. Now we can move on to Villager and Isabelle. I really like both of them, but only one can stay. I'll give you a hint as to which one I chose. I'm a dog person. Sorry, Villager.
My name is Isabelle.
Our last 4 characters are Joker, Hero, Steve, and Sora, and we unfortunately have to get rid of one of them. Joker comes from the Persona series, an RPG with absolutely phenomenal visuals and music. I'm actually planning on playing it relatively soon as it looks exactly like my type of game. Anyways, in Smash, Joker wields a gun has Arsene, his persona. Arsene works as a buff to basically everything Joker does and is his get out of jail free card. He also has my favorite Final Smash where he does an all-out attack. He's very fun to play as and is basically better sheet. Overall, Joker's awesome. Heroes from the Dragon Quest series and represents multiple versions of the main character through his skins. I've only played the demo of Dragon Quest XI, but it was total bliss. I loved every second of it and fully intend on playing through the whole game eventually. In Smash, Hero has a menu he can pull up to use different spells. He has a lot of options, but the catch is it's completely random. He has spells that make him jump high, spells that make him explode, spells that make him metal, etc. He has a lot of options and is a really cool character. The next character is Steve, and he's from a fairly obscure game called Roblox. Now, I've been playing Roblox since I was 10, and I've always loved it. And when Steve got into Smash, I couldn't be shocked because Nathaniel Bandy put him in the thumbnail to his reaction video. Why do you guys do this? But nonetheless, I was hyped to play as him, and you know what? He's pretty fun. His gimmick is he can place blocks and you can use them as platforms. In a platform fighting game, that's pretty big, which makes it easy to see why he became the best character in all of Smash. While he is fun to play, playing against him is a very different story. He's very overpowered and can easily rock your shit if you're not being careful. I love that he's in, but I'm not sure if he's my favorite to fight. The last character is Sora. Now, I got into Kingdom Hearts way after he got into Smash, but even watching the trailers, I could tell that him getting in was really special. Nowadays, after playing Kingdom Hearts and platinuming it, I can confirm that it would have blown me away if I had played it back then and watched him get in. Sora is such an important character to so many people, and it's no surprise that he was the most wanted character in Smash history. Now that he's in, I can confirm that he definitely lives up to the hype. His moveset is pretty basic but incredibly powerful. He can use Firaga, Blizzaga, and Thundaga. He can also use Sonic Blade to recover. His special gimmick is that most of his attacks combo together, like in the games. It's really cool. Unfortunately, Sora is incredibly obnoxious to fight against. It feels like he can recover from basically anything, and him constantly comboing the shit out of you can get very tiresome. Overall though, I'm glad he's in. Now, after hearing my thoughts on all of the characters, you may be asking, who will I pick to leave? After considering it, I think I've come to an answer. The unlucky character who has to leave will be Hero. For how cool he is, he just doesn't have the impact of the other three. He will be missed, but unfortunately, there was no other choice. At long last, I have finally completed my list. Just know, this list was very hard, and even if it seemed obvious in the video to get rid of a character, I can guarantee you it wasn't, other than the Echo Fighters. Even though this is my ideal roster if there was only 40 characters, I can tell you for sure I would really miss Mr. Game & Watch, King K. Rool, Snake, Roy, Dr. Mario, Hero, Byleth, King Dedede, Young Link, Pichu, you get the point. I really wouldn't want a game that got rid of most of these characters, which is why I'm a bit scared about the next Smash. I am excited for it, of course, but imagining a Smash without Pyra and Mithra, or Banjo, or Snake, I'm not sure if I would really like that much. Of course, I believe in quality over quantity, but I would still miss them a lot, which is why I think Ultimate will continue to be relevant even after the next Smash. But in order to get hopeful for the next Smash game, I want to do a top 5 characters that I want to be in the next Smash game. Paper Mario has such an incredible legacy and is so rich with moveset potential that it would be a shame if he couldn't make it. Like, his down B could make him use Bobbery, his side B could be Carry the Pixel, his forward tilt could be his hammer, you get the point. He'd be an exciting character and I'd be hyped.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
Leon S. Kennedy, or any Resident Evil character, would be awesome. Now, I don't want him to take inspiration from RE4 Remake, since I think that game fails at being a Resident Evil game, but him taking inspiration from OG 2 or 4 would be awesome. I think that he's so iconic at this point that it only makes sense that he'd come back for Ultimate, but if he does come, please don't make him use that new voice. It's so weak and nasally, please don't. Super Mario RPG recently got a remake announced. That means Gino's confirmed, yes! Majora's Mask is a transformative experience and is probably my favorite game ever. My favorite character from Majora's Mask is the mischievous Skull Kid, who's pretty much my mascot at this point. I genuinely think that even without my bias for him, he'd be great. He has a lot of different magic attacks, and even though they're a bit vague in-game, there's a lot of potential for a floaty brawler with projectiles. Plus, Zelda needs all it can get, and I'd be super happy if my favorite game's getting represented.
Hear that, Noah? Lance wants something a bit meatier.
Even though it's basically guaranteed for the next game, my most wanted character is a rep from Xenoblade 3. I love Xenoblade 3, and I think that there's tons of potential for a fun moveset. The entire game focuses on using multiple different weapons at once, and I think they could definitely do something similar to Byleth. Now, as to which character I think is getting in, my guess is all of them. They could be different skins with different voice lines and such. I think they'd be really cool, and I'd be excited to see what type of stuff they do with Ouroboros or Lucky 7. So that's how I would cut down the roster and my 5 characters I would add. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and please be nice in the comments. Have a great day.